Okay, Connor, let's have a look at the sketchbook here. I know that you've done quite a bit of an overhaul on this book, so well done. I'm going to go over it very carefully now and make a few very specific suggestions. So, probably best to get a pen and paper or take a few notes and so on, and have a little look at what I'm suggesting. And you want to work kind of fairly steadily through and make some adjustments. All the things I suggest are totally targeted towards raising your grade here, and I'll mention a number of the assessment objectives as I go along to make sure that you can see how I'm thinking about it. So straight away, in a bold scale with the piece you're looking at, a shift in colour, that's rather interesting. And you might want to mention how the colour shifts. I'd say it's quite useful having a photograph of a page like this because you can see what's going on with the tone. You've got kind of some quite stark jump between the dark and the light. Some more mid-tone would be useful. I like the way you've picked out the detail. Adding a little bit more writing, some subject-specific language underneath. So you're talking about different types of tone and maybe even the direction of the marks that you make, but also this interesting shift in colour. Here we've got some close observation. Again, I'd say as you go around the corner from this darkest point, it reaches lightness quite quickly. If we go back to the pepper, in places this is much slower. So you've got darkness and it spreads right across, and then the jump actually is right up here to the very lightest point. So I think you'll find that possibly little touches up here to be lighter, but as you go up in several places, it's more gradual, the shift from dark to light. So you're going to have to keep looking back and forth to make sure that the right parts are going dark and the right parts are staying light, just enough. But I like the fact that you've used the pattern quite clearly, used the different patterns to construct this picture. So again, well done. Nice detail in the pattern also. This is looking really excellent. I think it's something to spend more time on. Possibly difficult to get these kind of paler shades, but there is a kind of yellowy greenness going on there. Perhaps you could just introduce that a little bit more. And of course, the real dark tones in here, as you're starting to get here, could do with fitting in too. But this is a really excellent little study you've got going here. And straight away into the monoprinting. So we're going to keep a little bit of an eye on the order and the titling, and the titling's kicking in here. And there's obviously a clear link to what's come before. So moving swiftly on, the iPad drawing, it's kind of stands out there on its own. It would be nice to add to this. I'd like to get some iPads, or perhaps you could use some online equivalents. There's some links on theartwall.org to online tools, and you'll find some useful programs there for doing drawing, sketching, drawing digitally. It just needs one or two more extra bits. There's a perfect spot down here for two more versions. You could start comparing them. Okay, great to have the pictures big and bold, and they're really cracking lot of pictures you got going on here. Really quite dramatic in terms of the composition and the lighting and so on, and the colour. And you've chosen them from this selection. So I think it's important to note that these are selected from this selection of images. Usual order would be the smaller ones first and the larger ones to kind of make it more clear, but that's absolutely fine. So annotations here to highlight perhaps your thinking. You've done several versions, just as I've said, of one piece. So you've got from one viewpoint. So you've got several different versions here of a similar subject, and likewise with bananas and so on. So you're in a perfect position to choose which one you prefer and start talking about why. Yeah, again, strong colours in this. It looks very promising, really good start. Quite a difficult material to get a hang of, but well worth picking over it again and getting out some of these darker browns and also some of these darker purples. Just in places, just to change this from being a flat area of brown into being one that's really quite textured. Okay, good food and drink mind map. Quite useful to have this kicking at this point. You've got down the bottom there opportunities for more visual research, information, and so on, and some interesting points you've got to here in terms of the ideas and the thinking. And I think maybe to get the higher end of the marks, seeing how far you can extend out this mind map, so that you're making more imaginative leaps. You're making having a more kind of sustained attempt at really extending all the different diverse range of ideas that you're starting to build here. Okay, 2 pages that could possibly do with a little bit more work on them. I'm going to say that this one here is looking quite flat. Now, if that was a choice, then you'd want to describe it down here. But if it wasn't a choice, you'd want to start thinking about the overall sense of the 3D-ness, making some sort of light source implied by having shadow underneath, so darkening the red, possibly even on each of these little bits here to be darkening where the light doesn't get to. And likewise with this, Daniel Gordon is an interesting case that he actually will be making these 3D objects out of 2D objects. So they're photographs that are put together, so it does look actually quite flat. So in fact, this is probably quite fitting a look for Daniel Gordon study. I have some pictures of the Daniel Gordon. There's room up there. And then you come in with this interesting idea with a repeated pattern of the bananas. Yeah, you want to say maybe how you did that with the tracing paper. You stick the tracing paper down here. Yeah, good study. How have you made this explore that idea of something being disgusting or not? What about the idea of photographing from bins? So you could explore that idea further of something looking disgusting or not. There's still every reason to go back and do this now, because the idea of something looking attractive, disgusting, or otherwise is very central to all of the artwork we do, and so it's a very useful thing to have in the book. And so going back and taking photographs, even putting a fold out there, would just mean that you were exploring a range of ideas, and that you were being kind of purposeful and relevant in how you go about exploring this particular visual and conceptual key part of what we ask ourselves when we look at work and think whether it works or not, whether we like it or not, whether it's beautiful or not, and so on. So, a good study here. I like this layout of the page. Watch the spelling on Sigma. What is it? Oh, you got it right. Yeah, I was thinking of another book. You got that one absolutely right. Well done. The vertical lines, partly they're due because this is actually painted on plastic, kind of thing you get in Homebase. He's very interested in the pop art, and that kind of ties in with the bananas you did earlier, where there's a repeat pattern. So there's a kind of a pop art thing going on here, which I think we'll get to and look more at the Andy Warhol. We're good to have a little bit more background detail, but make sure it's your own thoughts too. This idea of something being messy, but liking the effect. It'll be good to see you say more about that, because I think you're absolutely right. You're onto something there. There's something messy about it, but also something that's kind of works quite well. So maybe there's a way of getting more of the language kicking in to describe just exactly what you mean by kind of messy and what you mean by it working. Okay. It would be useful to have a little bit more writing about Emily. Good to have a mini mind map there, but she's a real kind of key person when it comes to the thinking about building up an image in layers, because it ties very much in with the lino piece. They are moving quite quickly onto the lino here, so we kind of need to know that we're looking at lino printing specifically. So you could do the title here, maybe kind of horizontal down here, thinking about printing and layers, something like that. Title down here would set things up very nicely for thinking about the prints and starting to piece them together. and all the different permutations. I think I spent a little bit more time on the titles. If you've got enough room up here, for example, to complete a full and a larger title, then maybe I'm just spending a little bit of time. I don't necessarily mean hours or something, but 10 or 15 minutes just to fill that space. It would make the whole page look like it was kind of designed a little bit more. One thing I've got to say though, exciting range of prints taking place. What an interesting group that's happening here. Okay, so a slot for the linos. It would be nice to dig the linos out and get them in there, and also the tracing paper. Maybe some sort of documentation could go well here on how you actually did it, what the process was like, what the stages were like. You started here. I like the choice of these things very much. Um, think about how how the planning goes, how it goes together. Just a small note on the text here. Now you've got a page here with some really nice designs taking shape, and all these little notes on here are very useful. I just think overall, what does the page need? Well, it could do with a kind of neater base to it. If you know what I mean, a horizontal line across, not drawn necessarily, but using the base of this line here. This text, if this was kind of sitting on a bit of a line, it would just square things off nicely, or maybe some other little annotation there, just finish things off nicely. Okay, so good pages on Hiroshige. Take the time again. Raindrops looking good. Thick lines, thin lines, curved, straight. It's all going on. Maybe some fine tuning here. Looking again at these, there's a flatness to them. There's also a kind of hard line to them. All these things are worth writing down, just to kind of show you and identify the different types of mark. You also got some tone, maybe a little bit of hint of that tone up here would be rather nice, just to sort of finish off the page. Why draw? Big question mark. Good question. Yep, good question indeed. Okay, when you get a whole page stuck in like this, it's kind of okay. It'd be nice to trim it a bit and have a bit more of an input in there, because it can look a little bit like you just slapped the page in, and we don't know quite to what extent you are going to use some of this. Maybe if you highlighted this and then said that you enjoyed using that technique in the construction of your drawing of the canteen, maybe, or you looked at the purpose and so on of the drawing there, and thought about that in relation to some of the drawing that's to come. Yeah, nice little bit of detail there. Maybe just plonk in some drawings that you like. Here are some drawings that I like underneath. It would lead us well into the choosing of the drawing styles. A perspective drawing under here might be nice. There's some cracking examples that Leonardo da Vinci was playing with under here. Might be nice. Little addition. Set your book aside from everyone else's. Well done for finishing these off. I like this collage, and I like the red in it. And I'm thinking you've got your name in there, and I'm thinking, yeah, why not put your name in? It might be nice to take this technique a bit further. I mean, if you were to do a nice red collage like this of that pepper, for example, early on, a really nice detailed one, that would be that would demonstrate that you'd really pushed that medium, and explored its limitations of explore the limitations of the process. In other words, seeing what you can do with the collaging, or at least see what possibilities lay ahead. I like the way that you've identified all these little scratches on here. When you do perspective, make sure you line up. The key thing is to line up these diagonals so that it looks like they're all going to the same distant spot somewhere way off the page here. But that's a key thing. But I like the way you've got all these scratches and marks and so on, and it would be good to see the intentions behind putting all of these in, whether it was literally drawing the marks or whether there was some more creative aspect to it, where you're actually starting to introduce the patterns into it. Getting a number of stills from this, that would be useful. Of course, it's on the website now, the website you're looking at this video on. more stills would be good. Uh, Starting to look at other animators, other clay animators. If you go onto the links that are on the telesartanddesign.com website, you'll see that there's a number of sheets which have a number of people that you could look at who would give you a kind of contextual reference, someone to look at for your inspiration. And there we go, we've got the Shrigley, excellent. Plus your own little kind of version, indication, what happens and so on. I'd very much like to see this for your own clay animation. I know you've been working on it. Let's see that finished. I like this thorough animation here. Well done. This is a mini mind map. A few little stalks off that would go very well indeed. Get the drawing stars down. Yeah, cracking job at that. When you look back, if there's any other little bit you think, oh yeah, I could do with a little bit more work into that cheekbone there, or any little bit you want to add to it, then do. You've got this kind of hard line. It's all very scribbly. Maybe these ovals could be kind of, even those could be a little bit more scribbly. And I like the sort of thinking down here. Maybe a sentence to summarise down there, or maybe another Giacometti. Why not? One you found yourself. So yeah, room down there for another Giacometti. This is a jump into primary sources and looking very closely at a skull. So you've seen this one through pretty good as well. I would maybe try and get a picture of the item so we can always come back to it if we need to. The planning good, little shoots off good. Well done for getting that in. Now you're getting more confident with this. I think it's fair to say, going large scale again, and taking a close look at all this kind of very distinct cross-hatching method, and really not being scared to get into the deep tones. So well done for that. Yeah, good thorough research. Own versions. I can see you put some work in here. And I very, very much like all these texture images you've got. I think you've done a brilliant job of that. Maybe there's even room for one more sort of where you've got A3, a little bit of writing underneath. But this is good stuff here. I'm assuming you've taken all these pictures yourself. They sure look like a similar sort of thing going on with them. Generally speaking, though, get a trimmer. Don't worry about this time around, but get a trimmer on this. You're doing a good job with the scissors, but ultimately using that trimmer is going to make your life easier. Okay, Show Green and fella, Kimura. Little study of the Kimura, that would be useful. Abstract art, big title. Give it a little clean up. What did you do? How did it work out? I'd go back to this one, maybe even sharpen it up a little bit more. I really like the contrast in that as against that. Just see if there isn't. Look up these names. You get those names up pretty quick on YouTube. Maybe there's some way you could just kind of, like here, more detail, like it. If that's super detailed and that's super simple, or that's even simpler, we really get the contrast clearly. I just tidy up that edge just a touch. Yeah, Show Green, and a version of based on Show Green. Nice to see it. Abstract art, big lot of writing there. Quality. I can just about make some of it out. And I like the way you're talking about how you're changing your mind, you're thinking and rethinking. This is good stuff. This is impressive stuff. I'd have a go at some more abstract art. Give it a go. Maybe you could even do it with mixing the plaster with pigment that you like using. Let's have a look. Maybe room for more Delaunay up there. Maybe why not? You could put Prince all up there, and then Delaunay down the side. They kind of fit in. Maybe you can even write some sort of see-through writing Delaunay across here or something like that. So the whole page is composed a bit more. Really like this. Yeah, this is what makes me think could be doing some more abstract art. That's a quality job you've done there. Really, really nice. Page layout's good. Maybe some stencils up here for the writing might be nice. And a little trickle down there of the writing. I'll give you the names of these. They're on the sheet again. It's Kandinsky. That is Albert Oehlen, Oehlen, Len. And this guy's DZ, DZINE. Yeah, nice job of the abstract art. Little study there. Kind of breaking up some of the lines. I wonder if that's deliberate. It's not deliberate. I put it down that it is deliberate. In fact, hang on a minute. It is deliberate. Francis Bacon mixed with it. Nice. Get a Francis Bacon up there so it's really, really visible. Really nice job. Well done, Connor. Big stencils up there, maybe? Could be. What if? Yeah. Maybe color code some of these. Maybe you could start doing 2 examples. What if you... I don't know, see what you come up with. Practice the mixing. That's looking good. More of a grade between the two. Nothing wrong with just doing version 1 there, version 2 here. And you can see the development. You got good, sense of color here and here. Yeah, very nice. Quite abstract, quite strange, that car. All right. Dissection project. What is it? Well, let's have some gore up there. Let's have a dissected rat. A few more of this guy under here might not go amiss. Google him. Strange stuff can be found by this guy. Yep, interesting. What's going on there? One of the anatomy studies. You could do worse than just practicing the drawing, practicing the tone. 1 or 2 other items under here. So it's worth getting your head around some of the fiddly aspects of drawing. Nice to see some tone around here, maybe, and then jumping to the outline here. You put some time in with these. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, and really nice job. Some of this, really good. I think you have a crack at oil painting as well as this animation. Trip to Tate Modern, yes, you got it in there, and the text, well done. Just check when you're kind of lined up, maybe lay out. I do a whole kind of page layout where you just think, right, I'm roughly speaking going to get 4 bands of work in here, divided up and so on. So it just kind of, you think of the whole page composition, in terms of actually laying it out just before you lay it down. But yeah, nice job. Connor, you've done good. Take note of the things I said. It's just going to push things up higher. Let's get some of these outcomes going. Let's finish this this animation.